the invisible living world beyond our naked eyes. So this was a lesson we were discussing in the past few sessions for some time. So today, let's have a quick knowledge check of what all and how much have we understood the concepts regarding this chapter. So, how are we going to do this? We are going to proceed further with a few questions and let's have a look to the answers, or I should say let's find the solutions to those questions. Okay, so let's go get full speed ahead. The first question is, various parts of a cell are listed below. Where do they belong in the Venn diagram? So what does this mean? This means that in this question they have given you a few parts of the cell. We also call them cell organelles. By now you know that. Okay. So they have given a few parts of the cell, a few cell organelles, and they have asked us that let's see where do these parts of the cell, to which category of or type of cell they belong to. Okay. So the first one is nucleus. Now let's see, is nucleus present in animal cell? Yes. So let's just jot down where all these parts are present quickly first. Okay. So let's see nucleus. So is nucleus present in animal cell? Yes. So the nucleus is present in animal cell. So let me make a small note of the type of cell where these parts are present. Okay. Nucleus is present in animal cell. Whether is it present in the plant cell? Yes, it is also present in the plant cell. But is it present in a bacterial cell? No. Nucleus is not present in the bacterial cell, right? So we will not write here the bacterial cell. So instead of nucleus, do you remember we had studied in the previous sessions that what exactly is present in a bacterial cell? Yeah, so in a bacterial cell, actually what happens is, I'll tell you, we have the standard nucleus is something like this. Okay, so this is the nuclear material, and covering this nuclear material is a membrane or a layer. Okay, and we call it what? We call it as nuclear membrane. So this structure is completely called the nucleus. But what happens in a bacterial cell? In a bacterial cell, this nuclear membrane is absent. Okay, so in a bacterial cell, this nuclear membrane is absent, and what is present? Only this nuclear material. Only the nuclear material is present in the bacterial cell. And this kind of a primitive nucleus kind of a thing, which does not have a nuclear membrane, we call it what? We call it a nucleoid. Okay, so we call it a nucleoid. So that is why we say that in a bacterial cell, nucleus is not present, but what is present? Nucleoid is present. Okay, and if you remember, we had talked about this also, that a bacterial cell is what? A bacterial cell is a prokaryote. It comes in the category of prokaryote. Pro means primitive and karyote means nucleus, means the cell with a primitive nucleus. So we can say that a bacterial cell consists of a primitive nucleus, and this primitive nucleus is called what? It is called a nucleoid. So therefore, if we talk about nucleus here, nucleus is present in animal cell and in plant cell, right? Next comes your chloroplast. Now, chloroplast, we all know what is the function of chloroplast. Chloroplast is a plastid, okay, and which contains a pigment called chlorophyll, right? And this chlorophyll helps in what? It helps in the process of photosynthesis. Now we all know who performs photosynthesis. Do animals perform photosynthesis? No. So that means chloroplast is not present in animal cell. It is present in, yes, of course it is present in, what about plant cell? Yes, it is present in plant cell. So what are we going to write under the chloroplast? We are going to write as plant cell, that chloroplast is present in a plant cell. What about bacterial cell? No, in a bacterial cell, chloroplast is not present. Next comes your cell membrane. Now we all know what is a cell membrane. We had discussed membrane means layer, and cell membrane is that part of the cell which helps in the movement of substances in and out of the cell. So is it present in an animal cell? Yes, of course it is present in an animal cell. So we are going to write animal cell. Is it present in a plant cell? Yes, of course it is present in a plant cell also. And what about bacterial cell? Yes, a cell membrane is present in a bacterial cell as well. So that is why, so therefore, so we can write it here as bacterial cell. So therefore, cell membrane is one organelle, is one part of the cell which is present in common to all three types of cells. Next comes your cytoplasm. Now we know cytoplasm is a jelly-like substance where all the other parts of the cell are located. Okay. So is the cytoplasm present in animal cell? Of course it is present in the animal cell. So let's write it here. Right, let's write a small a here. Okay. What about plant cell? Of course the cytoplasm is present in the plant cell also. And what about bacterial cell? Yes, in a bacterial cell also the cytoplasm is present. Alright. Next comes your cell wall. Now we all know, is the cell wall present in an animal cell? No. Cell wall is present in plant cell? Yes, cell wall is present in the plant cell and it provides that rigid, that rigid structural framework to the plant cell. So we can write here plant cell. Cell wall is present in a plant cell. What about bacterial cell? Yes, you remember bacterial cells do have a cell wall, correct? So we will write here bacterial cell also. And last comes your nucleoid. So we had, as we just discussed, nucleoid is present only in the bacterial cell. What is a nucleoid? Nucleoid is a primitive nucleus. So what is a nucleoid? A nucleoid is a primitive nucleus. Okay, a primitive nucleus. Correct? So we will write here nucleoid is present in the bacterial cell. Okay, so this is how we are going to understand this question. So this is a Venn diagram in which we have to actually locate these parts of the cell that in which category of cells they are present. So as we discussed, common to all. So what are the part of the cells which are common to all? Cell membrane and cytoplasm. So cell membrane and cytoplasm are the two parts of cells which are present in common to all these three cells. Next comes to plant only. So plant only category, what are we going to write? We are going to write only chloroplast. Bacteria only, yes. So bacteria only nucleoid. Nucleoid is present only in the bacteria. And shared, now which is this organelle which is present in both plant and bacterial cell. Plant and bacterial cell. That means they mean to say plant and bacterial cell, this portion. They mean to say this portion. Okay, so this is the which is that nuclei? That is your cell wall. Okay, so plant and bacteria, it is a cell wall. Okay, and the next one is your plant and animal. So what is being shared in between plant and animal? And that is your nucleus. So nucleus is present in both plants and animals. Okay, so this was your first question. Understood? Very nice. Next, come to the next question. Okay, so here is an experiment performed by a girl named Anandi. What she did, Anandi took two test tubes. Okay, can you see this in the picture? Yeah, so she actually took two test tubes, test tube A and test tube B. And both the test tubes, what she added some sugar solution. What is sugar solution? Sugar solution is nothing but, sugar mixed in water. And that water was a bit warm. Okay, we'll understand why she took warm water also here. So she took some sugar solution and added both the test tubes. She added the sugar solution. Now, to the test tube B, she added some yeast also to the test tube B. Okay, and now after putting yeast to the test tube B, she attached one balloon each to each of the test tubes. She fixed a balloon. Okay, now what happened? After 3 to 4 days, the balloon of test tube B inflated. Yes, it increased in its volume. Yeah, so it got inflated. So what was the reason? So the question is, what caused this inflation of the balloon? Okay, so this is what the question was. Furthermore, if the trapped gas is passed into lime water, what happens? Okay, so let's solve the first part of the question. First of all, you understood the question? Yes. So Anandi took two test tubes, test tube A and test tube B. To test tube A, she added only sugar solution and fixed that, test tube with a balloon. To test tube B, she also added yeast, right? And then again fixed a balloon to it. Now after 3 to 4 days, the balloon of the test tube B, it got inflated. So the question is, why did the balloon got inflated? Correct? So where is the answer? You already know. The answer lies here. The answer lies here. Yeast, right? So we all know what is yeast. Yeast is a microorganism, a type of fungi, which when when exposed to sugar, what happens? It causes decomposition, means it causes breakdown of the sugar, and during this breakdown it releases a gas called carbon dioxide. So what happens? If you can write it here, we can understand it. This is yeast, and on this yeast, this is your one second. Just give me a minute. Yeah. So this is sugar. This is sugar solution rather. This is your sugar solution, and on this sugar solution, if we pass, if yeast is added to this sugar solution, what it does? It starts decomposition of the sugar, the breakdown of the sugar. And during this breakdown, what happens? The breakdown of the sugar takes place, and what is formed? Then during this breakdown, number one, the simpler substance is formed, and along with this simpler substance, a gas is released, which is carbon dioxide, CO2, or we also call it as carbon dioxide. Okay, carbon dioxide. CO2 is the formula for carbon dioxide. You are going to understand in your higher classes how we came up to this carbon dioxide. Okay, CO2. So this carbon dioxide gas is released, and because of the release of this carbon dioxide, this gas, as it got released, it passed into this balloon like this, and hence inflated the balloon. Now the next part of the question is, what did she do? Now she took another test tube, okay, and in this test tube she added some lime water. Okay, she added some lime water, and carefully she took out this inflated balloon and fixed it on this test tube. Okay, fix this on that test tube in which what was present? Lime water is present. Now don't get confused. Lime water is different from your lemon water. Lemon water is your water solution with lemon, nimbu. Okay, that is nimbu pani. But lime water is not nimbu pani. What is lime water? Lime water is calcium hydroxide. Calcium hydroxide. Okay, a compound called calcium hydroxide is lime water. And what she did, when she passed this, attached this balloon having this gas to the test tube with lime water, what happened? That lime water turned milky in color. It changed its color. Okay, so it changed its color. So what is the reason? So actually this is a confirmatory test. This confirms that the gas present in the balloon was carbon dioxide, because this is a confirmatory test for the presence of carbon dioxide gas, that when lime water, when carbon dioxide gas is passed through this lime water, that is calcium hydroxide, what is formed? Calcium carbonate. A compound called calcium carbonate is formed, and which is milky in color. So that is why that lime water turned milky. So hence this proves that, what was the question? If the trapped gas is passed into lime water, what happens? So this was the question. Hence this proves that the gas present in the balloon was carbon dioxide, and it turned the lime water into milky in color. Okay, so this was our second question. Okay, now let's move on to the next question. So understanding the concepts, now you are able to recollect what all we read in the last classes, in the previous sessions. Very nice. Okay, so the next question is, a farmer growing wheat. There was a farmer who was growing wheat in his fields. He added some nitrogen rich fertilizer. Now he added some fertilizers, okay, and which was what kind? He added some nitrogen rich fertilizer to get a good yield, to get a good fasal acha ho uska, right? So to get a good yield, to get a good production. A neighboring farmer, whereas some other farmer, what he had? He was growing bean crops. Okay, he was growing bean crops, preferred not to add nitrogen fertilizer to his crops, yet still got healthy one farmer who was growing the wheat crop, he added some nitrogen rich fertilizers to get a good yield. But the other farmer who was actually growing what? Who was actually growing bean crops, he did not add any nitrogen rich fertilizer to his field, and then also without adding that nitrogen rich fertilizer, he got a good productivity, he got a good yield. So why this happened? For this, the question is why. So have you noticed one word over here, bean crops? Now can you recollect something? Bean, what are bean? Bean is one of the legume, right? We had read about legumes, right? For example, different legumes are like, your pulses, your rajma, your peas and beans. All these are what? All these are, we call them legumes, and the plants on which they grow are called what? Are called your leguminous plants. Okay? And what are legumes? Legumes, the fruit of a legume is something like this. Can you see like this? Okay, and this is a fruit and it has got like this, it has got seeds, and these seeds are the legumes. Okay, now if you can recollect, we had read something about these, one particular specificity about this leguminous plant, that the roots of this leguminous plant, for example, if this is a plant, this is a leguminous plant, and these are the roots. These are the roots of a leguminous plants. So on the roots of these leguminous plants, they develop some root nodules kind of a thing. Some swellings kind of a thing develop. Okay, and these are called the root nodules. Okay, and in these root nodules is present a bacteria, lives a bacteria called rhizobium. Rhizobium bacteria. So a bacteria called rhizobium bacteria is present, lives in the root nodules of these leguminous plants, and it has a very specific function. Okay, now what it does for this leguminous plant is that it converts this atmospheric nitrogen. Okay, what is atmospheric nitrogen? We know that in our atmosphere there is a lot of apart from oxygen, carbon dioxide and many other gases, there is one more important gas which is quite in abundance, and that is your nitrogen gas. So the nitrogen gas is in abundance, okay, is present in the atmosphere, but the plants cannot absorb these nitrogen gas, in the gaseous form. So what is the function of this rhizobium bacteria? This rhizobium bacteria converts this atmospheric nitrogen into nitrogenous compounds. We call them nitrites or nitrates, okay, like ammonia, ammonium, different kinds of nitrogenous compounds. And once this atmospheric nitrogen is converted into these nitrogenous compound by this bacteria, it gets absorbed into the soil. It gets absorbed into the soil, and once it gets absorbed into the soil, what happens? The plant takes that, these nitrogenous compound, when mixed along with water, the roots absorb, and hence makes the plant healthy and growing. So this was the function of this rhizobium bacteria, and because of the presence of this rhizobium bacteria, what is happening? These bacteria fix the atmospheric nitrogen directly into the soil, acting as a natural fertilizer. So that is why the farmer who was growing the bean crops was not using the nitrogen rich fertilizer, because of the presence of this rhizobium bacteria, which is converting the nitrogen present in atmosphere into nitrogenous compounds, and hence making the soil rich in nitrogen. Okay, so we call it, and in turn, now you will ask, only this rhizobium bacteria is performing so many things. In turn, what is this plant doing? This plant is giving shelter and food also to this bacteria. Okay, so this kind of a relationship between this leguminous plant and the rhizobium bacteria is called a symbiotic relationship. We call it a symbiotic relationship, in which both the partners are mutually gaining something out of the other partner. Okay, so that is why you understood now. Beans are leguminous crops. Their root nodules house rhizobium bacteria, and this bacteria fixes atmospheric nitrogen directly into the soil, acting as a natural fertilizer. So that is why that farmer was not using, an additional nitrogen fertilizer. Got it? So, and this is the reason that why even some farmers, they rotate the leguminous plants with their other crops. Means in one season they are going to grow some wheat, rice or whatever crop they want to, and the next season alternate they grow a legume. They grow a leguminous plant in order to enrich their soil with, natural nitrogenous compounds. Got it? So, this is how we complete this question. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Now what we can see here is, again, there's a girl named Snehal. What she did, she dug two pits. Can you see here? There are two pits, pit A and pit B. Now pit A contains fruits, vegetable peels mixed with dried leaves. So can you see here? There are fruits, vegetables and some dried leaves also. Okay. Whereas in pit B, there are only fruits and vegetable peels but no dried leaves. Alright. And what she did, as she added some soil to it. So we all know what is she trying to do. She is trying to make a compost. Correct? In both the pits. But what is the difference? In pit A, there are dried leaves present, but in pit B, there is only dried leaves are absent. Now, after 3 weeks, what is she trying to test? And which pit will decompose faster? So, we understood what is she trying to test. She is trying to test the effectiveness of the compost. Now, how? Let's see. So, if we just have a look here, before moving on to this question, let me just ask you one question. For example, if you are just eating on a daily basis only rice you eat, okay, or I should say that one child is eating only rice for quite some time, and whereas the other child is eating rice with dal, okay, dal and rice, a mixture of dal and rice. So what do you think, whose growth and whose efficiency will be better? The first child who is consuming only rice, or the second child who is consuming both dal and rice? Yes. So because we know it will be definitely, it is going to be child B, the second child. Why? Because the first child is having only rice, which is only a source of carbohydrates, whereas the second child is having dal, which is a rich source of protein as well. So by this example, we understand that both the, you need a kind of a proper balanced nutrition to have a better efficiency and a better growth. So the same thing is happening in this example also. In pit A, if you see, in pit A there are fruits and vegetable peels, but along with that there are dried leaves. Now you know these dried leaves are a good source of carbon, okay, and these fruits and vegetable peels are a good source of nitrogen, okay. So in pit A both the things are present, but in pit B there is no dried leaves are absent. In pit B the dried leaves are absent. Are absent. Okay, so only what is present? Only fruits and vegetable peels are present. Okay, so that means in pit B what is lacking? In pit B carbon is lacking. Hence in pit B what is lacking? In pit B carbon is lacking. And we know for the microbes to function, they need a complete nutrition. So where are the microbes going to function more in order to make the compost, in order to break down all these substances? In order to break down these, so where the microbes are going to function better? Of course in pit A, because they are getting a better nutrition in pit A as compared to pit B. Okay, in pit A they are getting both carbon and nitrogen. So by this we understood one thing, that she is trying to test the effectiveness of the compost, that in which pit A or pit B the compost will be of a better quality, okay, and the compost will be faster. And secondly, she is trying to see that which pit will decompose faster. So which is going to give decompose faster? Now can you tell me? Yes. So the pit A is going to decompose faster because these dried leaves provide crucial carbon to the, to that compost. This fulfills the carbon nitrogen balance microorganisms require to efficiently break down waste. Pit B lacks this balance and hence decomposes slowly. Okay, so understood now what is the importance or significance of dried leaves in this in adding this. So next time when you yourself make a compost, don't forget to add some dried leaves also. Okay, interesting, good questions, very nice. Okay, now comes the next. Take 2 slices of bread. This even you can, all these things you can also perform at your home. Okay, take 2 slices of bread. Place one near the sink and the other in the refrigerator. Sink means your water sink, where anywhere where some tap is present. Okay, other in the refrigerator. What will you observe after 3 days and what are the reasons for your observation? So what are you going to observe? Can you think about it? Yeah. So if you see the bread on the which is present near the sink, you after some days, if you can see after a few days or after 3 days, you will see a kind of a fungal growth. Now you know what is bread mold, right? The rhizopus bread mold. So you can see that fungal growth developing on this bread. But in the one which is kept in the refrigerator, you will not see this kind of a microbial growth developing on that slice of bread. So what could be the reason? Yes, you already know. What was the reason? Because microorganisms need an optimal temperature, and which is a warm temperature and warm and moisture, warm and humid temperature to develop, to grow. So that is why there was a fungal growth on this bread, but no growth on the one which is kept in the fridge. So maximum fungal growth which is warm and moist near the sink, and no growth in the cold environment because they grow best with 3 variables are optimal: temperature, air and moisture. Cold temperature actively inhibit their growth. Alright, so this was again a very good activity you can also perform at your home and see the note your own observations. Okay, next question. A student observes that when curd is left out for a day, for example, you set the curd and you by mistake forgot to keep that curd in the refrigerator. It becomes much more sour. What are the biological explanations for this observation? Okay, so if you know, how does curd form? Yes, we had read about it. How does curd form? We take some warm milk and we add some little bit of curd only to it and we keep it aside in a warm temperature, right? So what exactly happens? We all know what is present in that curd. In that curd, the Lactobacillus bacteria is present, okay? And this Lactobacillus bacteria, what does it do? It converts the lactose. It converts the lactose sugar. So this is the lactose. What is lactose? Sugar, which is where? Which is in milk, present in milk. On this, what is acting? Your Lactobacillus bacteria acts, and what it does? It breaks down this lactose, okay? It breaks down this lactose and converts it into curd, right? So, converts it into curd, and what is formed? It breaks down and forms what? It forms the lactic acid, a compound called lactic acid. So it makes a compound called lactic acid, and which is responsible for making the milk or for making that curd sour. Now, once you leave this curd in outside or in warm temperatures, what is going to happen? As we know, when do microorganisms multiply? In warm and moist conditions. So this activity of the production of Lactobacillus bacteria is going to increase, and hence once the Lactobacillus bacteria increases, what is going to happen? It is going to break more and more lactose sugar, and more lactic acid is going to form, and the curd is going to get sour and sour. So that is why when left outside, what happens? The curd gets more sour than as compared to once kept in the fridge. Alright, so this was this question, causes the curd to become increasingly sour. Okay, now the last one, very easy. Identify the following microorganisms. Sorry, so I'm sure you all are going to answer this with me. The first one is, I live in every kind of environment and inside your gut. So what it is? Yes, it is your bacteria. What it is? It is your bacteria. So bacteria is a microorganism which is present even in your gut, and generally in every kind of environment bacteria can survive. Number 2, I make breads and cakes soft and fluffy. So we just read about it, we just solved a question about it. Which is that microorganism? That is your yeast. Yeast is a microbe which makes the breads and curds soft and fluffy. Okay. Number 3, again, I live in the roots of pulse crops and provide nutrients for their growth. So what is that bacteria or a microorganism? Yes, it is your, very nice, very right. So it is your rhizobium. It is your rhizobium bacteria. Okay, which is present in the root nodules of the pulse crops. What is pulse? Here again your legume. Pulse is a legume, a leguminous plant. So this is how we had a quick revision about the chapter, your chapter 2, which is the invisible world beyond our naked eyes. With the help of these a few questions, it was a kind of a knowledge check, a quick recap of what all we studied in this chapter. So from the next class onwards, we are going to understand, or we are going to begin with the next chapter of your curiosity book NCERT grade 8, and that is the health, the ultimate treasure. So stay with me, stay tuned. This is Dr. Nidhi signing off, and let's meet after a short break.